Price is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for September 9th, 2025. Well, another wild day in store today as we wait for a PPI report. We do have an Apple event today that I am assuming a lot of people will be paying attention to. But let's dig in on what happened overnight. First off, if we take a look at what happened to Asian markets last night, Asian markets had just a little bit of mix. Nothing major going on. We had Australia down 46.10 or a 0.52%. Hong Kong was up 304.22, 1.19%. We had South Korea up $40.46 or 1.26%. The Nikkei that has been zooming to the upside, finally pulling back down 184.52 or 0.42%. India was up 95.45.39%, and Shanghai fell by $19.54 or 0.51% during the night. If we take a look at European markets this morning, little tiny mix. After a big strong day yesterday, the DAX is lower by 65.97 this morning or 0.28%. FTSE is positive by 24.96 or 0.27%, and the CAC is up 31.37 or 0.41% this morning. If we look at U.S. futures are very modest here today, except the NASDAQ, which is, all big tech, all the time. In fact, I think the Mag 7 should become their own index because it is really becoming annoying to look at the majority of stocks moving down, and yet our index is up because of just 7 companies. If we take a look at the Dow futures are down 3 points here at the moment. S&P 500 futures are up $7.75. And no big surprise, we're going to work a gap up here in the NASDAQ, at least so far, up 57 even this morning on NASDAQ futures. Let's take a look at what we have going on in those bonds here this morning. Bonds haven't done a whole lot of changing. They're a little bit higher here this morning. 2-year bond is coming in at 3.50%. The 10-year bond is at 4.06, and that 30-year bond had quite a fall yesterday, coming in at 4.72%. If we take a look at the U.S. dollar, as a result, U.S. dollar continuing to decline here, but not so much as it was just a little bit earlier. Right now, the dollar futures are down 9 cents, so we'll want to keep an eye on that. And, well, as that dollar continues to fall, precious metals continue to show quite a little bit of bullishness here this morning, pushing back to the upside. If we take a look at gold this morning gapping again to the upside in this parabolic move up. Gold right now up $12.40 an ounce. $3,689 an ounce here this morning on gold. So keep an eye on that. That's gold futures. If we take a look at silver just resting back a little bit. Silver had a pretty interesting day yesterday. It was zooming up and then finally faded back a little bit. Right now down Only about 2 cents at 41.88 an ounce in those silver futures. Now, if we take a look at copper this morning, we've got copper continuing to move higher here. And if you take a look at COPX on those miners, really staying strong in there on those miners, pushing on up. Right now up a little over 2 cents here this morning on copper. Platinum continuing to move higher. Yesterday it had a little pop and drop in there, but stayed in that consolidation pattern in this little upside trend. Right now, platinum is up $16.80 an ounce this morning, trying to push on through here to the upside, so keep an eye on that. And palladium, that's trying to come up out of this bottom, that first little higher low in there, trying to come up out of there, is up this morning $8.90 an ounce, so keep an eye on those. If we take a look at what's happening with cryptos, we've got Bitcoin moving up again this morning. You can see here in IBIT we're trying to test some resistance here in the chart. But Bitcoin this morning up $735 a coin, or 0.66%. Ether this morning is coming in up 62.41 a coin, or 1.45%. Still holding in this very bullish pattern in here, and I would suggest if that breaks out of this little downtrend in here, there could be some nice upside there in Ether. We're green across the board in those cryptos this morning as the dollar continues to be very, very weak. Now, if we take a look at what's happening in oil this morning, well, if we take a look at USO has been rallying back up to test some resistance in the chart, and we've got oil up this morning, 62.70 a barrel, up 45 cents here this morning. Keep an eye on that resistance up there. That could break through up here, but this could also set up a pretty interesting short pattern right in here, moving along that downside trend. So watch that carefully here in USO. Brent crude's coming in at 66.51, also up this morning. And natural gas, how about this? We're on a record move here to the upside. Several days that we've been bullish in natural gas. Now, I think the question is, can we prove to hold in here? We've had several pops through this big downtrend in here, just wasn't able to hold. Keep a close eye on that here in natural gas. Watch that closely. Trying to come back around here on that side of things. Now, if we take a look at our producers in here, XLE, they've been struggling just a little bit here recently. They had broken through this resistance here in the chart, and that's kind of faded on back. So again, we've got that questionable pattern in here. Will we find that bullish action to push us back up through and hold on to that little upside trend, or will we see those bears really continue to engage any rally back, setting up a lower high in that potential downtrend coming back into play in XLE? Kind of a questionable pattern in there right now on those producers. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and really focus in on the details here. And I got to tell you, when you look at that diamonds chart, we pushed down yesterday. It looked like we were going to get a little bit heavy in there. Breadth continues to be extremely weak here in the market, and as long as we can keep those big tech giants pushing up that are in the diamond SPY and the QQQ, we continue to show bullishness in these charts, although the majority of stocks were weak yesterday. So let's take a look in here. Diamonds there's no way you can look at this chart and see bearishness at the moment. Very, very bullish resting pattern in here, holding, albeit a little bit volatile and maybe a little bit uncertain. Those bulls, if they can find some inspiration here in the day, every reason to believe they could push that right on through, and we're testing new record highs here in the diamonds. Not even going to take that much of a push to make that occur. If the bears were to have anything to say and we were to push back in here, well, we've got a little support right in here. As you can see, we've tested down in here a couple of times, bouncing back up off of that trend. So if the bears really got busy, we would need to break that area of support, I think. And then we could start raising some concern, particularly if we break back down below some of these, the last 3 days here in those lows, and we start pushing this back down. Now, I don't think it really gets ugly on any selling unless we were to break this big white candles push in here and break the below there. That would raise some concern, and I honestly think that if that were to occur, we have a very good potential of seeing the 50-day moving average. So keep an eye on that. I do think there are some big moves possible, both upside and downside here in the market, and with the extremely low breadth and the fact that we have been moving up this entire time, we've been moving up here in the market as breadth has been declining. So kind of keep that in mind. Whipsaws are possible here, so make sure you plan your trading carefully. If we look at the SPY, SPY continues to be very, very bullish. We've shaken off all of that worry and concern. SPY closing in here, if you look right there, that is a new closing high on the SPY yesterday as we continued to squeeze up. It's not the new high print, but it was a new closing high. And we're trying to push on through here this morning. So if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration, of course, a retest up here to see if we can break through there, and blue sky above there on the SPY. If the bears were to have anything to say here, push back in here, first we need to break back down below that little area right there, break down through there, and then we'll start progressing back down, maybe toward this area of price support in the chart right through here. It would be probably a breakthrough there that would raise some concern in the market and get a little bit of volatility going here on the day. But right now, there's no evidence in this chart that that's going to occur. Right now, we are so convinced that we're going to get a rate cut. The fact that our economy is slowing and that jobs are in decline doesn't seem to bother the market at all. Not even a little bit, as long as they can continue to buy big techs. If we take a look at QQQ continues to push on through here to the upside. We haven't quite been able to break out and hold above that candle there on Friday, and today might be the day that we can find that bullish energy to push on through. NASDAQ, the NASDAQ index yesterday actually made a new record high, but you can see we haven't been able to do that here in the Q, so watch that carefully. If we can break through that up here, maybe we can start stretching up and testing some of these levels up here for that breakout in the Qs and new record highs. So watch that carefully. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, I think the same thing is true here. We start pushing back down, breaking down through these areas here in the chart, and then we would start pushing back into this area of price support. If that price support were to give up and we were to give up this upside trend break in here, then that's probably where a little bit of worry would come up in the market. And I do think there are some big moves possible here. So you'll want to be keeping pretty close eye on that. If we take a look at our IWM, beautiful chart. There's nothing in there that's bearish. IWM continuing to push to the upside. You can see I've got the next resistance up in here, right in that area where we've got this little congestion of price in here. Every reason to believe we could push this right on through on the bullish side, breaking through, and then we're going to start stretching up through these areas here to see if we can start pushing up toward all-time highs in IWM. If the bears were to have anything to say in here, pull back into this area to test this area price support looks like a likely possibility, and beyond that we would test that big white candle here as support for a pullback and holding into that upside trend. Of course, breaking down below there is where we'd raise a little bit of concern or fear in the market, but right now there's nothing in that chart that suggests that's going to happen. And again, as long as we can continue to drive energy on this low breadth into the big tech giants, well, we just keep moving the markets up, even though the majority of stocks aren't enjoying that kind of move to the upside. If we take a look at our VIX, interesting in the VIX yesterday, we were popping around here quite a bit, but one of the things we saw yesterday is we saw that VIX still holding in there, a little bit of a higher low. Notice yesterday we pushed up there a little bit and then pulled back. So if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration here today, let's look for a retest of this area of price support in here, see if we can push down into there. And of course, if we break down through there, then we're back down here retesting recent lows in the VIX. No fear here at the moment, despite the fact that our economy seems to be weakening on the jobs front. So watch that carefully here if that occurs. Then if the bears were to have anything to say, and we do hold that higher low, this is where I think that low breadth could really come into play. If those bears were to pick up in here in any way, shape, or form, and that low breadth started to pick up on the bearish side, we could have that higher low and some real fear could come up in the market. So once again, I think there is that possibility, some really big point moves and both upside and downside because of the emotion in this market. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our T20s or T2122. We did not make it up into that bearish reversal zone for long yesterday. We pushed up in here, we just kind of camped out, and boy, the majority of stocks were selling yesterday. And at one point in time, T2122 had pushed down into this area, and then that afternoon rally pushing us back up, and then that surge in the last few minutes of the day seems to be the thing that is occurring almost every day. The last few minutes of the day, there is a massive surge to the upside to keep this market pumping. So keep an eye on this. If the bulls have anything to say today, every reason to believe they could, we could be right back up here testing the bearish reversal zone here in T2122. If the bears were to have anything to say, pushing back down in here looks like a possibility. We've got plenty of room for the bears to work. So if the bears catch on to anything, again, watch for some big point moves if that were the case. So far, we're not seeing anything in here that's giving me any confidence that the bears have any teeth at all. So watch that carefully. Our T2108 ended the day almost flat. We had pushed down during the day because the majority of stocks are weak here in the market, but overall we kept those big techs pumping higher, and as a result we maintained that upside trend here in T2108, holding right in there around the 60% area. If the bulls can find inspiration today, then we start pushing back up through here. Maybe we can get it back up here toward that 65% area. Notice there's a lot of congestion in that area. And in T2108, once we get above, if we get above that 70%, somewhere between that 70-75% area here, we're in an extremely frothy condition in T2108. Now, if those bears were to have anything to say in here, well, then breaking down this upside trend in here, breaking this back down, we've got some support in there around that 55 area and some good support in there around 50% too. So a little pullback in here I don't think would hurt anything. It's if we got one of those really big moves to the downside in a whipsaw that could be a little bit technically damaging. If we take a look at our T2107 also continuing to hold in that bullish pattern. We had this pushing down yesterday a little bit, but again, end of the day, big surge to the upside, pushing this back up. So if the bulls can continue that push, well, I'm going to start looking up here for 55% to be tested. You can see we've got 55%. We got a lot of congestion over here in that area, and if we can break through there up towards 60. Now, just keep in mind, between 60 and 65, we are in an extremely frothy situation here in T2107 if that were to occur and we get up through that area. If the bears were to have anything to say, well, we've got a nice little area of price support in here as well. You can see we can push back in here to this 50%, and there's plenty of price action support in here to hold us in there. So no major worries unless maybe we were to break down below that area. And then our T2101, this is what I've been talking about. T2101, our breadth just continuing to collapse here as we're rallying and pushing higher and higher and higher in the market. Our breadth is extremely weak, and what that usually means is that potential for some big whipsaws. So watch that carefully here. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden, if breadth starts coming in, it could come in on the bullish wave and we can get that big push to the upside, or it could come in on the bearish wave and we get that substantial drop here in the market. So watch that carefully here on T2101. Not something you want to see, that we continue to rally and stretch and rally with very few companies participating as our breadth continues to fall. Let's take a look here at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, not a whole lot going on in here this morning. We've got an NFIB Small Business Optimism report. They're looking for that to come in at 100.8. Little bit improvement here on 100.5, but that would be a good sign that small business is feeling optimistic in here if that does move up. So that could provide a little bit of inspiration on the bullish side here today if that were the case. After that, we've got some bond announcements, and we've got a 6-week and a 3-year note auction that will be going off this afternoon. And that's it. But everyone is going to be thinking here pretty soon. We're going to be thinking about this PPI report, what that's going to mean on our inflation side. Will this push that inflation number high enough that actually damages that possibility of the rate cut? We've been building into prices a rate cut here in the market, so watch that closely. That number could be very market moving. Along with that, on Wednesday we get those mortgage applications, wholesale inventories, petroleum status, and some bond auctions in here as normal, so kind of keep an eye on that, followed up with that CPI on Wednesday. Remember today, I think it's 10 o'clock Pacific time. Apple is going to be doing their reveal of the 17. It's unlikely that creates any major reaction in the market. As a matter of fact, historically, when the event goes up, Apple sells off. So watch that carefully here. Apple's been in a very bullish pattern holding in here. So watch that carefully. If they can really impress in here, then maybe we get that boost on through to the upside, but watch that carefully. Like I said, traditionally we get a little bit of a sell-off on Apple. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here on our earnings calendar for today. Earnings calendar, we've got a few notables to be paying attention to. Keep an eye on those. Grab a screenshot. Probably the most notable for this afternoon here is going to be Oracle reporting after the bell. So keep an eye on that. We look here this morning, we got CNM reporting here today, trying to push just a little bit higher at the moment. Momo going a little bit lower here today. KFY, that's getting a nice pop here in the pre-market, trying to push on higher, and sale here this morning trying to push up as well. So kind of keep an eye on some of those pushing into some resistance areas here on sale point. So let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I do truly appreciate it. Means a lot to me, and really helps to support the effort in putting these videos out every day. So thank you everyone for your kind consideration there. I really appreciate it. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very careful in this market, and try not to overtrade in a market like this. A lot of volatility can suddenly show up when breadth is so low, so watch that carefully. But one area that we really have to continue to talk about is in these miners. GDX, you can go through the GDX ETF. My goodness, there is a lot of bullish charts in here. There's just Newmont has been resting here. This is one that I think could have that upside potential with a little bit of push, but you just go through the list. There are so many stocks in that mining area showing tremendous bullishness. You can go to the juniors. Also in here, just a tremendous group of stocks showing lots and lots of bullishness to the upside. Just big stretches in here on those miners, and it really doesn't matter if it's copper, silver, whatever in here. They're looking really good. So I would continue to keep an eye on those miners here. And anything in the gold and silver. You might want to be keeping a close eye on PHYS. Now, PHYS is a physical gold ETF other than GLD, which is just really paper gold. But this needs a rest or pullback. In no way, shape, or form would I want to chase that here at the moment. But this might give you an opportunity to get into some gold, because Goldman Sachs is suggesting 5,000 maybe where we're going here in the next year or so in gold. So there's going to be some opportunities potentially setting up in here. I would keep an eye on that. Now, as the bonds continue to fall, I think it might be time to start keeping an eye here on TLT. Now, TLT, just an unbelievable surge to the upside. TLT needs to rest, needs to pull back. But if TLT does rest and pull back in here and holds that higher low, and we continue to see those bonds decline, then I would look for my next opportunity here on TLT. Keep an eye on that 20-year treasury in here. Big change here in the last few days on those treasuries. So take a peek at those. You might want to keep an eye on Google here. Google has just had an amazing run after the court decided that they're not going to break them up here. Really stretching here in the chart. I think it needs a little rest now, but a little rest, a little consolidation in here. Google might be something to be paying attention to. And as I mentioned, Apple in their little dog and pony show today revealing the iPhone 17 and probably some other things. Nice little bullish pattern in here. If they can impress, I still think there's a possibility that could push on through to the upside if they can impress. However, there are some stocks out there in the tech sector that are a little bit concerning. AMD's kind of just hanging in here right on this area of price support, not looking so good. And you can see we have failed our 50-day moving average. Short-term moving averages crossing down through. So it's not, some tech is starting to show some pressure here. So watch that carefully here in the market as well. There may be some short patterns showing up here pretty soon on those. One area that's continuing to look very good is anything in building with the hopes of a rate cut in here. Boy, these builders have really been taking off and looking good. So nice little push here to the upside. You can see the last 3 days, a little bit of resting consolidation in here. If we get numbers tomorrow in that PPI report that continue to support the rate cut, then I would look for these to push on through to the upside. Toll Brothers, Pulte Homes, Beazer Homes, anything in that home builder sector looks pretty good. And if you look in the materials sector as well, there's a lot of bullishness here in that materials sector, and you can see XLB is trying to make that effort here to break through this major resistance, and I think we could see that here soon. And you can see there's quite a few stocks here in that material sector doing a lot of bullishness, and that push up through here certainly worth paying attention to. Let's take a look at like XLY. XLY in the consumer discretionary area really coming up and looking pretty good here on those, and you can see this nice little upside trend pushing through. We broke through this resistance here in the chart in XLY. A lot of good looking charts here and there. Stocks coming up out of bottoms. Ulta is very, very strong. I was mentioning ELF yesterday in the room. Take a look at ELF breaking through that resistance, little resting pattern in here, and I can see that potentially moving on through to the upside. So watch that closely. Another sector, and I gotta tell you that I have a bias on this because I did pick this up yesterday here in UEC. UEC is looking really good here. Nice little pop yesterday. We're continuing to see uranium get stronger and stronger. You could look at UUUU. That's also a very bullish pattern. URA trying to push through some resistance up here. CCJ has got a little bit more work to do, been kind of struggling in here, but you can see nice little bullish up higher low in here. All we need is that nice bullish push to break us on through up here. And with AI, I think for the foreseeable future, anything that produces energy is going to be in demand. So watch that carefully here. We need to expand. We need to double our energy supply to feed the AI beast here. So watch that carefully, and I think a lot of these stocks should do quite well in here on uranium plays, as a lot of these companies are moving forward in their production of fusion power. So watch that carefully here. If we look at some other areas here of the market, this took a long time for this thing to trigger and to go, but since then it has really been going. Seagate just continuing to rip to the upside. WDC continuing to rip to the upside as well, looking good. In here, any little rest or consolidation, I think, could set up an opportunity there. Keep an eye on those. And there are plenty of other stocks. As far as credit cards, AXP seems to be performing the best right here on the credit card front, holding in a nice upside trend, nice bullish pattern in here. A little bullishness that might push that right on through to the upside. Unfortunately, things like Visa and MasterCard kind of fell apart here. Nice rally back there yesterday on MasterCard, but I'm not seeing that coming back here just yet. But I would sure take a look at American Express, has some potential there. And take a look at the cruise lines. CCL is looking great in here. Carnival Cruise, nice little resting pattern, just need a little bit of bullishness to push that on through. And RCL looking good as well. So keep an eye on some of those cruise lines, looking just pretty darn good. Now I could keep this going for quite a while here this morning, but I'm really running over my time. You all take care. Have a wonderful day. I want to wish you great results in your trading, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Wednesday morning. And as always, I wish you all the very best. Take care, everyone.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.